Jalen Brunson. Obviously, all Knicks fans want to know, when's he coming back? Is he going to be back before the postseason? That's an obvious goal, right? To get him back before the playoffs, at least in the conversations I've had. I don't think anybody wants him going into game one of a playoff series cold, coming off an injury, not having played any games. So that's first and foremost. And, we noted it after the injury, the scan and the x-ray led people to kind of breathe a sigh of relief, led people to believe that it was not as bad as it looked, and they had avoided, those worst case sprains, like the grade 3 sprains were avoided. And so it was more so week by week than it was, several months out. And we're going to get an update this weekend, Tim, but with Jalen out, what have you learned about this group?
I'm not honestly sure we've learned that much, right? I mean, we know who the Knicks are when Jalen Brunson's out there. And if the Knicks are going to go anywhere, they're going to need Jalen Brunson out there for 40-plus minutes a game, right? I mean, we already knew that Deuce McBride is a really good backup point guard, probably one of the best backup point guards in the league. So, I mean, I think they've sort of just done more or less what I expected. I mean, going 3-3 in these 6 games is right about what you'd think, right? They beat Sacramento and Portland. They lost to the Clippers, Lakers, and Warriors, and they came home and beat the Heat. Like, that's all pretty much exactly what I would have thought. So, Tom Thibodeau has always done a good job, as you guys both know, at all of his stops of sort of maximizing the players he has available, and he's always done well when he's had shorthanded teams. And I'm sure these guys will continue to crank out some wins until Jalen's back. But, to me, the real question is just going to be, what can those guys do guarding at the highest level in the playoffs? And we're probably not going to learn that until we get Jalen Brunson back on the court, see what he looks like, and then see who the Knicks are facing off with in the first round of the playoffs in a few weeks.
Right. And we were critical of the 2 wings, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, back when the Knicks lost to Boston around that stretch. And those guys, to me, have played really well. Not every game, but whether it's one or the other across this stretch without Brunson, I've been impressed, especially Bridges, very efficient. So those 2, maybe that there's some carryover there, but I agree with you, Tim. There's not a lot to take away. People talk about the ball movement. Well, listen, you're not in this position with the Knicks, having these pieces here, being a contender the way you are without Jalen Brunson, without the ball in his hand. So I think that's a bit of an overreaction. But Troy, I'm curious, from your perspective, what have you taken away from this group and their games without Brunson?
Well, it's when I watch this team without Brunson, I always look toward the end of quarters, toward close games to see how they can close without JB. Because the biggest thing for me with this Knicks team is how the bench looks and how this team responds to adversity under certain situations. If it's a close game, for instance, who's going to take over if Brunson's not there? In certain situations, like against the Warriors, really, we had nobody. Once the game was tied late, nobody could really close out that game. If the Knicks are blowing out a team and they're moving the ball and they're doing all of this, that's really the best way to win without Brunson, giving yourself such a huge lead that nobody else can come into the game late in the game and take over it. I thought this team responded exactly how I expected them to. I thought they would be better defensively with Miles McBride into the starting lineup. That has definitely been the case as well. Their defense with Brunson out has taken a step up. With Brunson coming back, the interesting part is, will the defense go back to what it was, or will it continue to remain the same? Now, if you take Deuce out, it kind of leads you to believe that the defense will probably go back to what it was. But that defense and how good it looks now, that needs to continue when Brunson comes back, because it's one of the biggest things that you can take away from this team without Brunson. Defensively, it just looks a little bit more night and day. Now, maybe that has to do with Mitchell Robinson being back in the lineup. We'll have to wait for Brunson to come back to see what it looks like. But defensively, I mean, that's the biggest takeaway for me without this team with Brunson. And also, who else is going to be able to close games without Brunson? And right now, there's really nobody on that list.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you can take away that the Knicks are better on defense without Jalen Brunson, but you're not going to say the Knicks shouldn't have Jalen Brunson on the court, right? Like, this is sort of the it's the problem with. I mean, problems maybe a strong word, but it's the complication of the way the Knicks are built. Like, if you've got him and Karl Towns, you're going to have an unbelievable offense, which they do. You're also going to have a pretty mediocre to bad defense, which when they're both playing, they do. And like, that's, the goal, I think, going back to the summer, I sort of compared them to the the Nuggets when they won the title a couple years ago, that team was somewhere in the 12 to 15 range. So can the Knicks be a slightly above average defense with those guys? That, I think, is the real question. And I think so far, at least with Carl out there, the general consensus on that would have to be no, that they're not going to be an above average defense. And if they're not, it's like I said, it's just hard to see the path beyond what we think they're going to be now, which is another second rounded out team.